Episode 9, discussing the power of limiting beliefs and how you may not even be aware of what is holding you back from your true potential. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me again this week. We have yet another powerful episode. I'm your host, Chewning, and this is EverForward Radio. I am back in my sort of kind of hometown of Richmond, Virginia. This is where I spent about 6 years after my time in the military going to school at VCU and where I got my professional start in what I do today as a health coach. And I am with, well, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, this is Yedda, and I am a native Richmonder, born and raised in Richmond, Virginia, and started my professional career here in the health and wellness industry, traveled a little bit to the West Coast and back to the East Coast, have an undergraduate degree here at the Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU, same as Chase, and studied community health, became a certified personal trainer, and then also a certified health coach. Received my master's degree in business administration from VCU as well, and then spent my career in the fitness industry as a trainer, as a health coach, also in the corporate wellness industry, in the integrative medicine field, and then also went back to VCU years later and started teaching in the same industry and areas that I studied as an undergrad and a graduate student. Currently today, I own a corporate wellness company here in Richmond, Virginia, do corporate executive coaching for business leaders in the areas of health and wellness and help them attach their beliefs and behaviors to their bottom line, and also serve as the entrepreneur in residence at the School of Business at VCU, helping connect the community and the students and the leaders in this society and community back to understanding how can we take ideas and create things that could better our community and our world. So I'm excited to be here with you today, Chase.
Thank you, and in case you guys couldn't pick up from that intro, she gets asked a lot to help out with a lot of projects, and she has a lot of credentials and experience behind her name and time for sure. So thank you for carving out some time for me today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
And I'm just gonna. So one of the main reasons why I reached out to Yedda here was because her and I have crossed paths in a lot of different ways. In case you can't tell, we have a lot of Go Rams Go history at VCU, and part of my experience here was actually the first time I ever integrated into something at VCU was actually at your former practice here in Richmond, an integrative medicine, integrative medical facility. And we had, for lack of a better term, a field trip to your establishment. And oddly enough, I think we were just talking about Deepak Chopra, and we were talking about the different types of chakras. I'm having a brain cramp now, but you asked a question, I remember, about these three different forms of either medicine or other approaches to medicine. And I knew one of the three, and I was blown away that something I had read had resonated into something I was studying and was applying and actually saw someone doing as a profession. And so if you could dive into a little bit of your practice there. So you kind of came from a brick and mortar facility. You had a wellness shop, a medical shop, and kind of talk about what it was to kind of run that, start that, and get your feet wet into the wellness world.
Yeah, I did. I had an integrative medicine practice. It was the first integrative medicine practice here in the state of Virginia. And I do think that's important because we're on the East Coast. On the West Coast, these are very common. Everyone goes. Integrative medicine is just part of the conversation.
It's all part of the juju out there.
Yeah, it's a very natural. Everyone says, of course, the mind, body, and spirit are connected. What else could there be?
East Coast, we're playing catch up a little bit.
East Coast, we are a very different animal. And so it's a very interesting thing. But I did start in 2006 the Center of Integrative Medicine. Our tagline was, we help you put the well back into being. And we absolutely believed, myself and the physicians and the other staff members, that if given the opportunity, the body could heal itself. It just needed the right internal and external environment.
Yeah.
And what I found throughout my personal health and wellness journey and up until the time I started this business was I was helping people get healthy as a personal trainer, as a certified health coach, a lifestyle coach, a friend, a family member. But it really wasn't connecting. There was no one-stop shop for wellness where you could go in and actually meet with a physician. You could meet with a personal trainer, a nutritionist, a clinical psychotherapist or social worker that could help you understand all the components that made you you.
Kind of all facets of what we understand the term wellness to be.
Exactly.
Today, right? Mind, body, soul.
Yeah, nobody was having that conversation. And in our healthcare system, it's very siloed. We have created a healthcare system in the United States that is very focused on certain specific areas and specialties. Yeah. There's no one place you go to where you ask a physician, hey, I'm experiencing these symptoms, and the physician says, okay, so let's talk about what's going on in your life, in your, not just your mental, but emotional, physical, spiritual, social, metaphysical, what financial, what are all these things that could be contributing to your health and well-being? So we started the medical practice, and it was such an incredible journey for me. One, we were the first in the market, which was great, but it also posed its challenges because this is a new concept for a lot of people.
You all were actually my first doctor out of the military. I forget her name. She was a DO, I think, there. And that was my first doctor out of the Army, because once we had that session with you, I was like, this is amazing. And so I bypassed the whole VA system and went and saw her, but then wound up going a different route because of some other paperwork issues, I think. But
well, you bring up a really good point. So when we started our practice, health insurance doesn't cover that. And so
that's what I found out.
Right. We were forced to say we have to be an out-of-pocket practice, which was unfortunate because with that there comes the challenge for patients to say, well, if my health insurance doesn't cover this, I now personally have to pay for this. And there is the entrepreneurial business side of running a healthcare practice. And so what we found was a lot of people were used to seeing a physician or a healthcare practitioner with their health insurance, not paying an out-of-pocket fee for that. And so we ran into lots of great challenges, which helped us to think about what's the best way to build this business. And what I love hearing about that story, Chase, is it just reminds me we never know who we're going to meet, where they're going to be taken from our own personal stories and experiences. And we never know the journey someone else is on when we stand in front of the room or beside them or next to them or behind them and we hear their story. We have no idea. And so that was in 2006 when I opened that practice.
And so it was 2009 was when I first started VCU and came to your practice. Yeah.
And so now it's 2017. And so we think about, like you said, our paths crossed and they've crisscrossed in many ways. But here we are all these years later having a conversation. And I never knew the impact that I could have had on one person's and did have on one person's life just by being open to saying maybe this practice could help people. And so really for me, the journey to creating that practice was to offer to the community the ability to say, how does my body work and integrate and heal, and what do I need to know as a human being that I own in my healing process? And that was a very different way to think about healthcare at that time. Yeah.
So was it kind of just the business idea that presented itself to you, or what was it maybe in your own personal physical life that kind of like, because most people when you hear like I'm a personal trainer, I'm a physical therapist, it's because they either had like a great experience with someone in that field or they had a major injury and kind of fell into a love of the body through their own self-education. So was that kind of the same for you, or how did you kind of fall into this?
That's a great question. So the journey of how I got to, and if you would have ever told me years ago I would have owned an integrative medicine practice, I would have said you're crazy, you're out of your mind. There's no way that's ever going to happen.
What the hell does integrative medicine
mean?
I
don't even, that doesn't even equate to me. And so how I got to where that part of my career path started was years prior, I had started my own corporate wellness company. My original health and wellness career started in Northern Virginia when I worked for Bally Total Fitness as a trainer, worked my way into management.
So her and I just switched roles apparently, because now she's in Richmond and I'm up in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, now you're in Northern Virginia, right? So we're just all leading the same life, just at
pretty
different
much.
times. And I was at the health club one night and got a phone call at the front desk, and it was one of those serendipitous moments looking back where the receptionist said, hey, I need you to catch the phones. I need to run away from the desk for a second. I was standing across from a client that I just finished training, and the phone rang and I answered, and there's a woman on the other end, and she said, oh my God, I really need a trainer to come down to downtown DC tomorrow morning at 4 a.m., train my client. We've had an issue. I can't get a trainer there. And at first I thought I was being secret shopped.
And I said, that happens.
It happens all the time in the fitness industry. I said, I am sorry, I can't train a client outside of the business hours. They can, had to do the whole, here's the list of
protocol.
things. Right, protocol.
Absolutely, yeah.
And she was really adamant, and she said, would you just take down his name and number, and could you give it to someone after hours to make maybe they'd be interested?
Just pass the buck.
Now, I want you to remember this is a 1-800 number to Valley Total Fitness nationwide. We had 365 clubs.
Wow, okay.
She got all the way through to that front desk, and I picked up the phone.
Yeah.
And I said, great, what's the guy's name? And she said, Dr. Ken Blanchard.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote it down thinking, I was 20 and I thought he's a foot doctor. I remember really thinking a doctor, the only doctor you could be is a medical doctor. This guy must be a foot doctor. I don't know why I thought foot. And as I was writing it down, the client across from me said, I hung up the phone. She said, did you say Dr. Ken Blanchard?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yes. And she said, oh my gosh, look at this book. And she had the book Who Moved My Cheese, and Ken Blanchard had written the foreword.
Wow, no way.
To the book.
So at that exact moment,
at that exact moment,
had this opening.
So here's where this opening started, and I said, "Oh my gosh, this is who is this guy?"
Yeah.
She said he wrote the 1 Minute Manager. He's done all this great work around leadership and personal growth and development, and you've got to do this. And I said, "Oh my gosh, 4 a.m.
That's so.
I mean, DC traffic.
Yeah, it's not where you want to be."
And I said, "Okay, great, I'm gonna go." I went and met him the next morning.
Yeah.
And this old man comes off the elevator, his hair's going every which way. And the very first thing out of his mouth, not even a hello, who are you? Mm-hmm. He just says, Yedda, what are your priorities in life?
Wow. Not like, hey, what workout were you going to be doing today?
Nothing. No, he goes straight for, like, what are your priorities in life? And I had never had anyone ask
Talk about being caught off guard.
No idea. And I said, I'm not really sure. And he goes, well, I suggest you figure them out.
Okay.
We started training together. Needless to say, I met with him 4 mornings in a row in downtown D.C. Turns out he was there with Norman Vincent Peale to do a workshop on the power of positive thinking. And there was this whole world that I was introduced to that I had never even...
Wow.
So that segued into him leaving and saying, I'm going to be back in 6 months. I'm coming to right outside of Richmond for a workshop. The top 50 CEOs have been handpicked. They'll be there, and I'm doing a workshop on servant leadership. I'd love you to be my guest.
Wow.
And I said, okay. I had no idea, Chase, what I was getting involved in.
Yeah.
I go down to this event 6 months later. I meet him. I meet all the CEOs. And every single one of them were successful in many ways, not just financially, but had businesses they'd either started or were leading. And several of them said, if you could do anything, Yedda, what would you do? Mm-hmm. Again, no one ever asked me that.
Yeah.
I'd never even thought about it. I just thought you get married, you have babies, you get a job, and...
That's the norm. That's what I'm supposed to do, right?
This is our life.
Yeah.
And that question really resonated with me, and the president of the YMCA was there. And when he asked me that, I said, you know what I would do? I would quit my job. Mm-hmm. I would move back home to Richmond, and I would start a business where I actually not only sold personal training and health services, but I actually delivered on all of them, because the industry I was in was oversell, underdeliver. So I said I would want to sell, and everything I sold, I would want it to be utilized so that I could help people to get healthy and to stay healthy.
So for all my personal training listeners out there, we just exposed your darkest secrets.
Absolutely. To all of our gym membership salespeople, right?
Yeah,
we don't want to sell 1,000 memberships and hope only 10% of the people come.
Exactly, yeah.
So that was just the industry I had seen and had been in. I didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
And that was my answer. So if I could do anything, I would quit my job and I would come to Richmond and I would start a business where that's what I did. Now, I didn't know what that looked like. I had no idea.
Have you ever had before that? Had you ever started your own business or anything?
Nothing. Okay. Absolutely. I mean, that was so far in the future to me to even think like that. And I just said, but yeah, if anything were possible. And one of the exercises that Ken had us do that weekend, I'll never forget it. And I highly recommend it for anyone who wants to kind of open their mind and think about what would life, or what could life look like.
Yeah.
And he had us do an exercise called the Fantasy Friday.
Okay.
And we had to sit down 10 years out and write down our Fantasy Friday in exact detail.
Meaning, like, what
would we be
my
doing?
ideal world, what would my Friday look like?
So right now, 10 years from now, on a Friday, what would Chase Chewning do when he got up? And you've been given a magic wand. Anything is possible.
So I would have Sugar Shack donuts in my kitchen, my own private deadlift platform in the living room.
Yeah. I mean, it's so here's what was really cool. So I wrote out my Fantasy Friday.
Okay.
And
what was yours?
So here was my Fantasy Friday, was that I would get up in the morning.
Yeah.
I would drive my son to a private school that I was able to pay for.
Okay.
I would come home, I would work out with my husband, we would enjoy our morning together, we'd have breakfast together, we'd go for a walk, I would then go get a massage, I would have lunch with a good friend, I would enjoy my day and my time, I would work from home, I would own my own business, I would have time freedom, financial freedom, health freedom, and then I would pick my son up from school, and this really to me was so far-fetched.
Yeah.
I would pick him up, we'd come back home, we'd have the afternoon together, I would be able to have dinner as a family, have a movie night, and I would be completely and totally in control of my entire day, every moment.
Well, that sounds really nice.
I didn't have to punch a time clock. I was making a difference. The people I was working with, I was in charge of when I worked, how I worked, what I did. It was all around health and wellness. But I knew that I wanted to be I wanted to be in control of my own freedom.
Yeah.
And to me, that's really what I wanted. I wanted the freedom financially and socially and physically, emotionally, mentally, in every way. And I wrote that down, and at the time, and the other thing was, which was really interesting given where we're doing our interview today, I wrote, and I was still living in Northern Virginia, that I had a white house with a big white picket fence out front, and I had a front porch and a huge backyard for my son to play.
And I'm looking out your window right now at your white picket fence, big front yard, big backyard. And before this interview, we were reconnecting in your back sunroom. So yeah.
Absolutely wasn't even living in Richmond.
So am I dreaming right now? Do I need to?
Right. So I'm telling you all of this to say we did this Fantasy Friday, and I was self-employed. I was doing things in the health and wellness industry, but I had time to do whatever I wanted.
Right.
I was a deliberate creator orchestrating my own life in this fantasy. And I never understood the power of intention when I did that.
Yeah.
Because we're in my office, and I'll tell you, because I can pull the journal off the shelf, where I literally have that exact Friday still written out.
Wow.
And I live that and even more every Friday.
That's amazing.
So that was where that dream started. Not knowing what it would look like. I didn't know it would be called the Center of Integrative Medicine. I didn't know what it would be called. So when I went back home, my husband got out of the military. We moved back to Richmond. I just went and got a business license, and I just said, I want to start a business.
Okay.
I picked up the phone and called each one of those 50 CEOs I had been spending the weekend with at that workshop.
Okay.
Had lunch or had coffee or had a meeting with them, and asked every one of them what advice they had for me, who could they connect me with. This was my vision. I wanted to start a business. This is what I wanted to do. So I started a corporate wellness company in downtown Richmond, got some incredible contracts through people that knew people that knew people. And I created a very unique consulting business around corporate wellness where I would go in and meet with the business owners or the HR reps, and I would ask them, what do you do for health and wellness? What do you want to do? So I was doing customized corporate wellness plans in all the high-rises downtown in Richmond.
And by corporate, you mean you were going to, banks, law firms, any corporation?
Any employer, major employer in the city of Richmond that had any interest in health and wellness, whether it was a massive contract or a very small, just come in and do one hour lectures.
And would you say this time was corporate wellness really on the radar at all for these people?
There was only one other company in Richmond, and they had a cookie cutter. You had to do it their way or you didn't do it at all. And then as fate would have it, they closed. So I naturally got more business. As fate would also have it, one of the fitness centers downtown that was across the street from my biggest contract closed.
Yeah.
And their trainers and massage therapists came over the next day and said, we need a gym. So anyway, so that's the space that I was in, was doing all this corporate wellness. I went from a one woman show overnight to now I've got people working for me. And then how to segue that back to the Center of Integrative Medicine is I actually was in a magazine, Cleos magazine. They did an article on me about my corporate wellness business, and a physician called me, and he said, I've studied with Andy Weil, all of the big physicians in integrative medicine. I'm here in Richmond, and I want to start an integrative medicine practice. This article spoke to me. What you believe, the philosophy you have is totally in alignment with what I believe.
Yeah.
Can we sit down and talk? And
just a quick segue for those of you who don't know who Dr. Andrew Weil is. He's an MD based out of, or at least now lives out in Arizona, has a wildly successful integrative medicine practice. He's a great author. You may recognize him on all of his books. He looks like Santa Claus. He's this big, grandiose guy, white beard. He's an MD, like I said, but he just does everything in kind of that alternative integrative medical approach.
Yeah. And he has an incredible program for physicians who want to actually get certified as integrative medical doctors, but you have to be a physician to go into this program out at Arizona. And so this physician said, this is the certification, the program I've done. I'm interested in this. And he said, but I'm not a business person. I don't know anything about it. And what do you think?
Yeah.
And I came home and I said, well, gosh, what do I think? Followed back up with him. And in this process of having this conversation, I love how life works. My son at the time was 7 years old, and his best friend had just been diagnosed with leukemia. And they'd been best friends since they were 3. And his mother had called me, and she said, there's no resource out here for us as a family lifestyle. And a lot of my friends and a lot of people in the community would start to contact me to say, well, you do all this lifestyle stuff. What should we be doing nutritionally? What should we be doing with exercise? What should we, all these areas.
So at this point, instead of you going out to people, you began to have people coming to you. What was that like, kind of all of a sudden being the subject matter expert in an area where up until this point, most people are like, I just need to go to my doctor. I need to go to a medical professional. So they came to you basically trying to piece together all the other stuff.
Yeah, and what I found was, and this is where I think as an entrepreneur, what we naturally do as entrepreneurs is we see a need.
Yeah.
And I started to identify a need because my friends and family members and clients and coworkers and employees were coming to me and saying, people are asking, how do we put all this together? What is a holistic health plan look like? How does our stress affect our physical well-being? How does our physical well-being impact our mental well-being? And all of these questions. So like you and like many of us that are in the health and wellness industry, I just became an avid student, and I started reading and researching and connecting and attending workshops and just picking up the next dot and then connecting it to the next one. And so when this mother called me, it was one of the most profound moments in my life, because for me as a mother, I couldn't imagine what it would be like to receive a terminal, at that point we thought a terminal illness diagnosis for a child. And I said, these are great questions. I'm actually just met this physician, and I think there's a lot of great resources out there. Let's get together and talk about it. Unbeknownst to either one of us, she had gone the very next day to an event, met a physician standing in line. Turns out it was the same physician that had contacted me.
Wow.
And so we somehow, in the next couple of days of conversations, pieced that together. So the 3 of us met. And then we decided we would actually start an integrative medicine practice. Her area was in marketing and PR. Mine was just in business and health and fitness and nutrition. His was in the integrative medicine. And we just started working together to say, let's do this.
I think that's an amazing segue into one of my previous solo messages I talked about was the power of taking action. And so basically a big build up, what I was telling you kind of behind my introduction to podcasting and why I'm doing this was really kind of paying attention to what the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, whatever life experience you have going on, people, universe, things happen to you for a reason, and most people don't pay attention to that. They don't connect the dots, like you said. And in my message about the power of taking action is just, if you're not on the path that you want to be, or you want to do something but you don't really know how to do it, how to go about it, really paying attention to these coincidences, these circumstances, what people are telling you that you're good at, who is coming to you for what purpose. So you had all these coincidences happen. You had all these people come to you for guidance, for when you get down to brass tacks, life and death, really, looking at this illness. So it's just amazing how all these things come together, and so many people either don't take advantage of it, or they just kind of tread lightly and they idle a little bit with it instead of just really pushing forward and through into something that they're meant to do.
Yeah, and Chase, I would love to say I was absolutely 100% aware of every decision I made, and I
of
knew
course,
exactly,
right? Yeah, we have to say that now.
I knew exactly what I was doing. And what I think is really great, and as I think about my background in my own educational experience in health and fitness and nutrition, and then I moved into learning more about behavior change, and then as I learned more about integrative medicine, I started learning more about this very esoteric, in my opinion, nebulous kind of...
The juju.
Right? The juju, really, for me, what I'll put it in a word that it helps me to keep things grounded, creativity, right?
Yeah.
To me, where was I finding my creativity, and where was I finding, authors write about the flow, right?
Yeah.
And so I think this is happening to everyone on the planet at all times, in all ways, shapes, and form. And I've done so much research and study into what does that flow look like? How do we get into flow? How do we know when we're out of flow? How do we know when we want
That's
to be
such a
in
hot
this
topic right
flow,
now.
right?
Yeah.
How do, my mindset, where do I, my energy, my inner guidance system, my emotion, there's all of these things driving us at all times. And what I realized looking back is, thank goodness, we have two components of ourselves. One is our ego, and one is what I would like to call our higher selves.
Okay.
And our higher selves always knows what's in the best and highest good for everyone involved.
Yeah.
And when we're in flow, I feel like we allow that higher self to just run with things, because it knows things that we don't know on an egotistical, psychological, human, physical level. And I did choose to say yes to a lot of those opportunities. And I will tell you, a lot of times I had complete and total fear. I had no idea what was going to happen.
Yeah, I was just going to ask. I mean, so you went from stability, working in, corporate America, still in a world and a field that you enjoy, fitness, health, wellness, whatever you want to call it, and then totally going out on a limb, a leap of faith, and just the unknown, really. So, I mean, how do you kind of explain getting over or getting through that fear to solidify, something concrete?
That's a great question, and I don't know that I consciously chose how to get over it in that moment. What I will tell you in looking back was that the pain of where I was and the dissatisfaction of trading hours for dollars and not feeling satisfied or fulfilled was strong enough for me to say, well, I don't know what's over there, but if I stay here, I know that where I'm at is not where I want to be. And what we know now in behavior change is most people make a change once one side of you gets a little bit more painful, or I call it lopsided. So I deal with clients all the time, and they're not ready for change, and then invariably something traumatic will happen. Now they're ready for change, because the pain of where they are gets too unbearable that they're willing to take the risk to say, well, what's over here?
Why do you think that is? Why does it take something, like you said, unbearable? Why does it take a significant trauma, injury, loss of a family member, a loved one, to be that catalyst for us to really finally take action, to wake up, to pursue something?
I think what it is it's contrast. I think we as human beings need contrast. And if you think about this, if we had no contrast, we wouldn't know the difference between happiness and sadness, love and hate,
good, bad,
bad, right and wrong. And so the contrast, and I do think back, I've never learned anything more powerful from something that was easy as I did from something that was painful. And I believe that what happens is, in that moment where we are pressed, where we are squeezed, we are literally in this purification process where we raise our level of awareness. And when we raise our level of awareness, it changes our perception.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we change our perception, we see it with different eyes. And now we're operating on a different energetic and emotional and metaphysical level that then attracts a whole nother subset of energies in the universe to connect to us. And then it's this constant evolution process. And I think it's the contrast that says, oh wow, it sucks in the moment and the pain is awful, but it helps us to get to a different level that we wouldn't get to if we were just constantly satisfied and happy and everything was good.
And not to jump like too heavy into biology and the physiology of everything, but in our working and coaching with people, and even our working together, like we have in the past, I always go back to the analogy of, why is it so easy for us to drive to work? It's because we do the same route all the time. Our brains, our conscious, our subconscious, don't have to do any work, really. We have created that pathway. Again, I think I talked about this in the last episode. I challenge people to take a phone call, take a different route to work, and see how much more difficult it is. Even though I'm at point A, I'm at point B, I know everything in between, but because I have to turn left instead of turning right, you force your brain, consciously and subconsciously, to make new decisions, to fire in different ways, to create new neural pathways. I think it's not to downplay any traumatic event, but would you kind of say maybe it's something similar in that experiencing happy things, we don't really have to think about it. We don't really have, we enjoy it, it feels good, we don't really know why, we don't need to think about, why does this feel good, am I not sad right now? But when you experience a traumatic event, it's like, oh my God, what's happening? I'm being totally caught off guard. So maybe talk a little bit about what is going on internally, biologically, that is forcing that, kind of level of awareness to come to the top for us to literally feel something totally different that's changing our course of action.
Yeah, so you've mentioned beliefs, and this is what I think is really interesting. And I want to just give a segue here. None of us are taught this in school.
Mm-hmm.
None of us are taught consciousness. None of us are taught awareness. And I'm going to say none of us here in the U.S. If we were raised in a temple in the Eastern philosophies,
Maybe.
we would probably be, and I love this, and I met several Buddhist monks who had left Tibet and had studied with the Dalai Lama a few years ago. They literally get the equivalent of a PhD in love and compassion in the study of the training in the temples.
I believe it, yeah.
That, so I wanted to ask them, like, what do you do, when you're a baby and your mother literally drops you off at the temple and is giving you into service of the world? It's literally, they said, the equivalent of learning and gaining a PhD in love and compassion.
Wow, that's
and
intense.
I thought, we don't get that, right?
Yeah.
We don't get that here in the U.S. It's a very different
We get
thought
studied
process.
to take your SATs, get into college.
It's manufacturing, it's rote memory, it's entrepreneurship, it's innovation, it's cramming content, and it's a very different experience. And so what I want to mention and how I want to answer that question that you just asked is around our belief systems. And so when we are born, we are programmed from a very, very young age. And I love the analogy of the smartphones, the computers, the tablets we use now. When we download an app to one of these devices, once we download it and we put it on our device and we turn our phone back on the next day, we don't consciously say, I hope that app is still there, and we don't consciously put effort into making the app run.
Yeah.
It's just there. It's
there.
running in the background. Well,
running in the background, draining our battery.
Exactly. And that's what a belief is.
Yeah.
So when we're very, very young and we start to build beliefs, a belief is literally a thought you just keep thinking over and over and over again. You think about it to the point that it literally becomes a program and creates a neural pathway in your brain. And the brain doesn't have to use as much effort because it's made that program. It's made that loop a million times.
So that's why we don't have to think about certain things, because it just happens.
If this, then that. So we're programmed from such an early age of our manners, our belief systems, our religion, the way we dress, the way we talk, the way we look, the way we make our bed, the way we choose our food.
Our entire existence.
Our entire existence is, at that young age, the thoughts keep coming, and those thoughts start to build belief systems. So if you imagine your subconscious, it only knows the present moment right here and now because it's running your entire physiology of your body. Yeah. It's making everything in your body work. Imagine if you had to give conscious thought to make all the cellular functions happen in your body.
You had to tell yourself, breathe, inhale, exhale.
Make every cellular function happen.
Reproduce cells.
Everything. You would implode,
Absolutely,
right? The amount of energy that it would take. So what's beautiful about the way our brains are made and our bodies are made is our subconscious mind is programmed to handle all of that in the background.
Okay.
So when we are conscious, when we are awake, which by the way is only 5% of the day. And that's
really? Wow. I haven't done the math on that, but I guess
5%. And you want to guess what time of the day that is?
What's that?
Morning.
Are you referring to like
when we first wake up, our conscious brain is the most alert and awake in the morning. And the minute stress hits, the amygdala begins to fire off the chemicals in the brain, prefrontal cortex begins to shut down. It can't make some high-level decision because we're already stressed.
Right.
And so now that we're stressed, the brain and the body says, well, let's pull these programs out of the subconscious mind to run the show.
Okay.
And so whatever you got programmed as a child is running in the background. And it takes less energy and effort for the body to run those programs that are in the background, like on your smartphone, than it does for you to make a conscious decision to say, oh no, this time on the way to work, I'm going to turn right up at this stoplight as opposed to left, which is where I always turn. Because we've all done it. We show up at work.
Yeah. How
30
did I get
minutes.
here? Yeah.
30 minutes is gone. I don't even remember driving.
Yeah, I talked about last time being on a phone call on the way into work or on the car ride, wherever you're going. And do you really think back on that? Did you really think and have to process, okay, I'm at this street, I need to turn left, I need to slow. No, you just go because you've done it so many times before. Your brain just knows how to transmit that out to the rest of your body to act.
Exactly.
And so when we introduce a new barrier, we introduce a good event or not bad event, like I always say, what you always say, there are no good or bad events. Everything is neutral until we give a response to it. Absolutely.
Right. And our beliefs are the filters in which we perceive an event and then create our reality from our perceptions. Okay. So take the same drive to work and you're on that phone call and all of a sudden there's a roadblock, they're doing construction and they're rerouting you a new way. You can't keep having the same level of conversation. You got to say, hey, wait a minute, I got to pay attention to where I'm going. Now I got to find a new way to get to work.
And think about that emotional response too. Not only do we have to process, okay, now I need to find a new route home, But what happens also, we get pissed off.
Yeah.
But why do we get pissed off? Because it's new, it's different. We have to consciously think about what we're going to do.
Right. And so change, back to what you were saying, change. Any interruption, whether it's a traumatic diagnosis, an illness, an emergency, a sudden change in our lifestyle, our work, whatever, relationship status, what that does is it challenges and goes against our belief system. Mm-hmm. If it's in alignment with our belief system, we're good. Mm-hmm. Sure. It just supports it. And we have a lot of great healthy belief systems. We also have some limiting belief systems. And as we get in touch with those, that's when the resistance comes. And so someone ends a relationship, or our boss says, we don't want you to work for us anymore, or a health situation comes up. We're challenged to question. And what happens in those adverse moments of contrast, we then pull that belief system up into a conscious awareness and say, maybe this isn't serving me anymore. Maybe I need to do something different. And you begin to change the belief system by changing the way you think. Yeah. And then once you've created a new belief system and then created a new neural pathway with the brain, that new belief system can go back into the subconscious mind. And before you know it, now you're making different new decisions that you weren't making before. But it's a process. It doesn't happen in just one thought.
So you work with, for lack of a better term, everyday people looking to lose weight, go to the gym, but also a lot of, corporate executive clients. So kind of just across the board, when you're working with someone who is presenting with a limiting belief like this, whether they realize it or not, I'm sure you probably realize it, we realize it sooner than most people, sooner than the client. For our listeners, for your clients, what is kind of the process? How do you present to them what you're seeing, how to get through that barrier, how to change a belief system for someone who may have had this in place for 10, 20, 30, however many years, their whole life? How do you rewire your software?
Great question. And this is what will really shock you and will shock, I think, most of our listeners.
I'm sitting down. We're good.
Most people know what their limiting belief is.
I would agree.
When you really get really into a space of conversation with them. And so the process that I will work with my clients is I have a list of the top 20 limiting beliefs, and I will literally show them the list, and I'll say, hey, let's just be real honest with ourselves. Which one of these seems to resonate the most with you? And people pick it out within 60 seconds. They will say, that's me.
Brutal honesty. Yedda and I have worked together on a professional level before. She did this with me. And literally within seconds, I read the list, I looked at it, and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
this is me. This is what I tend to kind of funnel through in, my day-to-day actions, my professional world, my relationships, things like that. So in your experience, and I would definitely say in mine, people see the truth and it stands out to them. And so then how do you go from there?
Once they acknowledge it and they say this really resonates with me, for example, I'm powerless is one that I've experienced recently with a corporate client, a CEO. Then what we do is I have a document that goes through how that usually shows up in their life, that they may consciously and subconsciously be presenting those facts. What's really beautiful around a belief is, especially a limiting one, when we're really small, we create limiting beliefs as a mechanism to protect us and keep us safe.
Absolutely,
it's a defense, right?
Human nature. Yeah.
Exactly. And then as we get older, though, we move into adulthood, maybe the feelings of I'm powerless don't really serve you anymore when you're in a work environment, because you're now able to be powerful. So as a child, that limiting belief of I'm powerless served you in some way. So as we become adults and now we've acknowledged, yes, I've struggled with this most of my life. I'm a CEO, I'm a leader, I walk into a room, I don't feel respected, I feel like I'm not powerful.
Sure.
There's all these things that come out. Well, here's what's really great about the human psyche. We show up and create ways to keep doing a self-fulfilling prophecy to make that limiting belief still be alive.
Okay.
Meaning, if I believe that I am at a deep level powerless, I will show up in a manner where I am overbearing. I am too powerful. I am giving my power away.
Okay.
And so what I do with clients is I help them identify how are you showing up and what is your behavior teaching other people about how they should teach you. So invariably, if you have a belief that you're powerless, you're probably subconsciously doing things to tell people, treat me in a manner that shows me that I am powerless. So you're giving too much decision making to your team members, or you're speaking with vocabulary that is in a manner allowing them the ability to defy you or do something that they shouldn't.
So would you say, in kind of an easy way to sum it up, compensation, a complex. You know, they always go back to the Napoleon complex.
Absolutely.
He was so small, he tried
Yeah.
to conquer the world, literally.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So you
Yep.
seek out the opposite of how you feel or what you think is holding you back.
Yep. And so in the coaching process, what we do is we work through identifying how are you showing up. And this is what the belief that I hold is we teach people how to treat us.
Yeah.
So we need to learn to show up in a way that authentically says I am powerful.
Right.
And it's learning new vocabulary, it's learning new ways of being, it's learning new behaviors of interaction with people. And then once the client begins to try these new behaviors on and get different experiences, you begin to build new thought processes and rewrite that narrative that I am powerful.
Literally build new neural pathways.
Yes.
You're reprogramming your software.
Yes, there's a conscious process of saying I'm aware of this limiting belief, and I am aware of how I'm showing up, and I'm aware that I'm going to show up in different ways to try to get a different outcome. And the more I do that, there's 4 ways to change a belief. One is repetition. But it can take, most people say 21 days to change a habit.
Yeah.
I get news for everybody listening. It can take up to 265 days based on the latest research.
Yeah, 21 days if you're really, really, really super hyper aware of what you're doing.
And it's a really easy belief to pull
Right.
out the program, change
Yeah.
it, and pop a new one in.
Yeah, but
These
something
are
like limiting belief,
lifelong.
these are
I'm
much
talking
longer.
lifelong.
Yeah.
So you can do it through repetition. You can do it through theta wave introduction. And what theta wave is it's a brain wave where you're in a transient kind of twilight state. It's what they do when they put you in hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
They introduce you into the theta brainwave
That
state.
heavy flow state.
Right. So we have 4 brain waves. Theta is the one where you're semi-subconscious and you're in a different, you're not completely conscious, but you're not unconscious.
Okay.
That's the magic brainwave. You can do a theta brainwave during meditation, during yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong. Any mindfulness practice will put you into, if you practice it regularly, can put you into a theta brainwave state.
Basically anything that just kind of helps separate your mind from your body, kind of just like
I call it separate,
mental detox.
Yeah, I call it separate your conscious mind from your subconscious mind. And when you are totally present in this moment, like we are right here, right now, our subconscious mind lines up with our conscious mind.
Yeah.
When your conscious and subconscious mind line up together, you can pull information out of a program, reprogram, put a new one in.
Okay.
A lot of people will try to do this just consciously. They've got the affirmations, they're going to wake up, they're going to conquer the world, they're going to do their best effort. And
I'm gung-ho, I'm going to do whatever it is I need to do.
First time a stressful event comes in, you might immediately go back to your subconscious mind, you go home and you're a whip dog and you're like, I didn't do it today. I meant to, but I just didn't make it happen. I didn't go to the gym.
Which of course all of us as coaches, trainers, how many times have we heard that, like I got my gym clothes laid out, I got my gym time set up, I go, I get sore or I'm late, traffic keeps me from getting there on time, and all of a sudden you just throw your hands up and give up.
Right.
So.
And this is where mindfulness comes in. So you can't just do it with just conscious effort. Willpower is only going to get you so far. So when we introduce a mindfulness level of being in the present moment and being fully conscious and aware and making a different decision, it allows us to literally rewire our brain and to create new neural pathways, because the present moment is infinite. We always have the present moment. But the conscious mind, and we've talked about this before, the conscious mind is not time bound. So it can remember the past, it can fantasize about the future.
Yeah.
While we've been sitting here talking, I'm sure you're already thinking lots of other things outside of our conversation. It's human nature.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a lot going on.
The subconscious mind is always present. So mindfulness helps you to bring the subconscious and conscious mind into alignment.
Okay.
And when they're both in the present moment, you can change a belief instantly.
Wow.
Instantaneously, it can happen. Another way is through energy psychology, which does the very same thing, and traumatic life events. So we were just talking about that. Why do traumatic events make us change literally on a dime? Because it pulls everything into this exact moment.
It makes everything real.
Everything becomes real, and you have no other choice but to be completely present in the moment you're in, and you can change anything.
Yeah.
But they're the hardest lessons, and they're some of the most painful. So contrast, traumatic events, painful events are our greatest teachers, because they bring that alignment so rapidly and so quickly that we have no other choice but to literally rely on the breath, rely on the exact moment we have, and make decisions in real time, which is different than when we're just hanging out, talking to our friends, doing a job that's really not that exciting.
Living
doesn't challenge
kind of
us.
passively.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just, we're very passive.
Yeah.
So most people, and I've been there and I know you have too, we can be very passive individuals, and then something happens like a phone call.
Yeah.
At the club one night when someone says, hey, I need a trainer, like a life event, an injury, a loss of a family member, a health diagnosis. And all of that, I believe, comes into play. And when we say yes to those moments, the universe brings the next moment, and then the next and the next. So it's really learning to live a surrendered life, in my opinion.
Well put. Live a surrendered life. Is that a Yedda exclusive? Or are we going to see that on bumper stickers?
I don't know that we're going to see that on a bumper sticker. I actually think that I've heard that in multiple places, and it's a huge challenge to. I actually read that in a book from Mickey Singer, and he wrote The Untethered Soul. And he challenged. He said, for a year I chose to live a surrendered life where I made no conscious effort to make anything happen. I let something cross my path, and I said yes to it, even if I didn't want to. Because I trusted that the universe was bringing me the next right thing and the
trust in the process. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
amazing stuff. Limiting beliefs were something that I think I was aware of or kind of heard through some training or education before, but up until our time working together, I never really applied them in any manner. And I have to say that, again, aligning that present moment into becoming aware and really investing my time and focus into learning them has really helped my flow, my thought process, my relationships, my leadership, and really dealing with people above me, below me, laterally. And so I think that a lot of people could definitely benefit from just being present in, not even just every significant event or significant decision-making process, but just really in everything that you're doing. As you go through your day, why am I doing this? Why am I, who are these people with me? What am I feeling? What am I experiencing right here, right now? And then why, which is, I think, in my personal experience with a lot of my clients and patients, is that's the hardest question to get people to ask, to really help them understand why they aren't where they want to be in their life, whether it's weight loss or gym goals or just relationship, really just in general in life. The why, most people don't know, they don't have, because they're not really even aware of where they are in their life, what's limiting them. And it's that hard and fast presenting of limiting beliefs, that paper that I'm sure you literally slide in front of people and showing them that truth. Hey, these are the things that you may be experiencing that you don't even realize that are holding you back. It's hard coming face to face with your own truths.
I would agree with you, and you're making me think of a couple of things, and one thing I'm thinking of is one of my favorite quotes from Marianne Williamson, where she says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
Yeah.
And we all have been raised in a manner to play it small. And those of us who do choose to play it big, we really take a lot of risk, and we take a lot of challenges, and we face them. And so I also think a little bit about what you said about the why. And there's a great TED Talk that a lot of my clients, I recommend to them, Simon Sinek.
Yes,
and it's the
Power
Golden
of Why.
Circle. Yep, the Power of Why. And really asking ourselves, why do I do what I do? Whether you run a business, whether you are a parent, whether you are a professional. And so people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think if we all got in touch with why.
Yeah. Why
do I want to achieve this goal? Why do I want to find out what's driving my inner psyche? Why do I want to choose something different? And those contrasts and those traumas get us in touch with the why in a light second.
It's coming face to face with those limiting beliefs, whether you realize you had or not.
Right.
Which, like you said, will really dramatically, instantaneous. Like I said, when I did it with you, it was a matter of seconds. I was like, yep, there it is. It filters through everything else, and all you're left with is, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I've been fighting. This is what has been fighting against me this whole time, and I didn't even realize it. Yeah. I was just looking on my phone. I was listening to a podcast, of course, on the drive down here. Wellness Force Radio. Josh Trent is another one of my big podcasts I listen to on a regular basis. And he was interviewing Tom Bilyeu. And he is the founder, I'd say technically still is, of Quest Nutrition. Quest bars, Quest chips. Yeah. And he has recently kind of segued out of Quest. He's still in a founder role. He just doesn't have like a day-to-day role anymore. And he has started Impact Theory. And I'm going to ruin the quote, but basically he was kind of echoing what you were just talking about. that reference of most people aren't really afraid of what they can't do, their limiting beliefs. It's a matter of that they're gonna actually be good at it, or that they're so impactful and can be so powerful that scares them. And that was one of the biggest things that he was talking about, that he tried to implement some new things and get into, you know, the headspace of wellness at Quest, but it just wasn't quite working because he had kind of outgrew himself there and became scared of what he was trying to implement, basically not in a bad way, but because he's like, this works, this is what every person is going through. And that's what got him out of Quest Nutrition and into kind of doing these own mindfulness seminars and businesses and stuff. So I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Another thing that you're reminding me of is we're just kind of moving into a different space around leadership and entrepreneurship, and the space that I'm in now that I absolutely love is I really did a deep dive into leadership and into this mindfulness and these what I call global game changers.
Okay.
And so these global game changers that are out there in the world, in the history of the world, what did they do that was different? You know, we think of Walt Disney, we think of Henry Ford, we think of Steve Jobs. We think of
all these people who did great things.
Coco Chanel, Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela. These were global game changers, but they were people like you and I and like everyone listening. What made them different? And I always would ask myself, so what was it, just luck of the draw? Was somebody playing chess up in the sky and decided they're going to move this person into this role into this period in time?
Did they grow up in a
what's the magic? And lots of books. Outliers is a great book that talks about that. Lots of study have been done, and I know you and I are both entrepreneurs. And as I think about leadership and these global game changers, there's three things that I've realized over my years of research that are synonymous across any of the game changers. So the gentleman from Quest, all these people, the Deepak Chopras of the world. And so to me, I'm interested in now as an entrepreneur and teaching at the School of Business, but teaching people, so what is that? What is that process?
What do they call it? The X factor.
Right. Yeah. What is the X factor? We all know we should be in flow. We should have our conscious and subconscious mind aligned. We should have all these, dynamic, awesome things happen at exactly the right moment in the right way. But what did they possess within themselves? And they all had their challenges, but there are three things that they possess that are coming to mind as we're talking. And the first one was they were independent of the good opinion of others. And they were self-thinkers that trusted their own gut and intuition. They didn't worry about what other people thought.
Yeah.
And when I think of Henry Ford as an example, Henry Ford didn't say, I really care what other people think. He was so in touch with who he was and what he knew he was called to do, and he trusted his own intuition, that he walked away from his first round of investors no problem.
Wow.
And back then, that was death in the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah.
The second thing was they're detached from outcomes and stay in the process of growth and evolution, and they know how to quiet their fear-driven voices.
Okay.
So we think about, again, I go back to Henry Ford. He didn't say, I want to be a global auto manufacturer. He said, I want to build a car that every man could afford.
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela didn't say, I want to be a worldwide figure for peace. He spent, over 20 years in prison, and he literally lived in a place where he knew peace was possible, but he didn't say, I want to do it because I want to become world famous.
Yeah.
Coco Chanel didn't say, I want to become a fashion icon. She just saw something that she thought could be done differently.
Yeah.
And then the last one was they have no investment or power or control over others, and they love being in the moment on purpose.
I like that. I like that a lot. Be in the moment on
purpose.
In
the moment on purpose. And, your Steve Jobs, your Walt Disney. Walt Disney said he believed that the common language was laughter.
I believe it. I mean, look, Disney World.
Disney.
You go there, you can't not laugh.
Yeah, he didn't build a business to say, I want to become a bazillionaire from amusement funds or amusement park tickets and funds. He wanted people to have an experience of laughter, and he always was in the moment. Steve Jobs wanted to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
And so when we think about that, we think about all this stuff we're talking around beliefs and thoughts and health and wellness. And as I think about where my career is going and has gone as a leader and as an entrepreneur, we all have that capacity.
I agree.
So how do we quiet those fear-driven voices, and how do we stay in the moment and then not worry about what other people think and be our own self-thinker? And it's pulling up some of those limiting beliefs and saying, they don't serve me anymore.
Yeah.
And I want to create new beliefs. And that's what all of those people did that were global game changers. They just maybe didn't know that that's what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, you have to start out and be your first and biggest advocate in any endeavor that you do. Because if you can't get behind yourself, how can you expect anyone else to, you know?
Yeah. Nobody becomes a leader because they wake up and say, I want 1 million people to follow me. They become a leader because people choose to follow them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I love about your EverForward is people choose to follow you and listen to you and be involved in you because they align with what you believe, and they say, yeah, I want to move forward. That's where I'm going in life. And that's why people will follow you is because they're in alignment with what you believe. And that's where belief systems create our whole reality.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree. And that's definitely been, like I said, one of the biggest and most overwhelming responses to all of this. You know, at this point, like I said, it's not about me at all. This is all about the connection and the platform for everyone to have this ability. Because once I began doing all of this and, you know, really applying those 2 words to my life instead of just having it on my wristband, having it tattooed on my arm, it's an act. It's not just a phrase, you know? And so once you kind of connect on that level, it's no longer yours.
Yeah.
And so the best thing you can do, the only thing we can do is to, you know, pay it forward, EverForward, and to just try to connect as many people as possible and to just, you know, put down your own limiting beliefs and, you know, believe in yourself, be your own advocate, and really step into your greatness and step away from that fear of not only what if this fails, what if I don't succeed in this, but, you know, damn it, what if I am really good at this? What if? Yeah, so, I mean, that's what I would empower everyone to do. So whatever you're thinking of doing, whatever you feel you're being pulled into or the direction you're being pushed, it's for a reason. And you need to just explore those options. And if it succeeds, wonderful. If it fails, you've got a great learning experience, which we now know will rewire your brain and your software. It absolutely will.
Yeah. And what I would say as an observation, listening to you and knowing you as a person, is that EverForward, it goes beyond just an act and a phrase. It's a belief for you.
Absolutely.
And because you hold that belief and it's so strong and so important and so valuable to the world, and you're giving it to the world as a contribution, other people are getting into alignment with that same belief.
That's
and
awesome.
That builds a following, and that belief was given to you as a gift, and as you share that with other people, you begin to build a momentum, and that is where true change happens in the world, because we attach to the beliefs that we hold dear.
You attach to the why.
Exactly. And so your why is, you know, EverForward, and it keeps you going and driving and moving forward. And all of us that are involved in you and your life personally and professionally are here because we have the same belief system that we keep pushing forward, and we keep growing and evolving and learning. And so it's just, it's a great honor and pleasure to be able to know you, to work with you, to talk with you.
Likewise.
And you're right, that gift of the EverForward is something that will bless the world in many ways that we may never know. But
I hope so, and I believe so. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great belief to hold.
So what are maybe some current projects or something you're doing right now that's really exciting, that's really sparking you to move forward?
Well, that's so interesting that you would ask me that, because I'm getting on a plane tomorrow to go to Saudi Arabia to teach. And so
I knew that's why I asked the question.
I know you did. The projects that I'm working on, you know, locally, I do a lot with coaching and consulting and teaching. I'm really excited to be, and I've always had a belief that I wanted to work on an international level and to empower other entrepreneurs around the world. And so I'll go to Saudi Arabia to teach entrepreneurship.
That's awesome.
To an all-female university in a country.
Girl power.
That is growing and evolving literally as we speak. So to teach entrepreneurship and to teach these young women in their 20s that they have an option and an opportunity to create and be a deliberate creator in their life.
In an area in the world where that's not really.
This is a very changing part of the world too, and the history of that country is that women have not been the leaders and the entrepreneurs and the corporate game changers. And so as we see the face of the globe change, there is a university there that offers a degree in entrepreneurship. So in partnership with Ford Motor Company and VCU, I'll be going to teach entrepreneurship to these young ladies.
Awesome.
So that for me is exciting, because as you are stating the EverForward and your belief in that you're giving a gift to the world, I feel like all of my entrepreneurial adventures, successes, and failures have brought me to this moment in time that now I am teaching other entrepreneurs what I've learned and what I know so they can become successful entrepreneurs and make a greater impact in the world. And that to me is the gift I believe I have to offer.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I hope you have a great trip. But
Thanks.
before you go, let's get maybe one fun fact. Maybe what's outside of like health and wellness and coaching and working out and stuff. What's a fun fact about Yedda?
Is there anything else?
Fair enough. Fair point. It's so funny. So I still have my 9 to 5. I do the coaching and stuff, and people always ask, so what do you do like when you're not at work? Like, I do this.
I don't understand the question. Like,
exactly.
What's not work?
Like sometimes I just don't get paid for it.
I don't know. A fun fact about me, I'm in the same space you are, Chase, is I love to learn, I love to grow, I love to evolve, I love to challenge and change and constantly reinvent myself.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the entrepreneur in me, maybe that's, who knows what else it could be in me. And I would say a fun fact about me that is not related to anything that we've talked about that is profound and life-changing is that I have an incredibly massive crush on the hottest Turkish actor in the world on a Netflix series.
Oh, this is random. I didn't know this. I did not know this.
So I have this really interesting, what I do outside that I would say is completely fluff, that is a hobby, is watching shows on Netflix that are either PBS or subtitled in other cultures that are those, the romance where he shows up on the horse with the buckle shoes that he's gonna right? That's
so cliche.
So a fun fact about Yedda is that she is a diehard PBS romance subtitle foreign film just nut. And so there's this new show I'm watching, and this guy he makes Brad Pitt look ugly.
So if I ever see that pop up on my recently watched feed, I know who's hacked my Netflix account.
Yes, it has been me, and it's probably something that you will not like. But it couldn't get any hotter, I think, than a good-looking guy speaking a foreign language riding in on a horse.
All right, so everyone take note. Go learn a language and go learn how to ride a horse, and you may find your way galloping into more women's hearts than you realize.
Absolutely, I love it.
Well, Yedda, thank you again for letting me pick your brain today. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And
likewise.
This is, before I even get into my pre and post work, this is already my longest interview. And I know that you and I could just spend hours talking. Like we said, what we do for work, what we do for personal time, it's all the same. And we always kind of just get in a good flow. So I appreciate that. And that'll be a wrap.
High five.
High five.
Awesome.